What is up, goalies? We are back on the DIY Goalie podcast, and we are doing a little bit of a different episode today. So, I've got one of my co coaches with True North Goaltending, Connor Munday, with us. And what we're going to do is we're going to do kind of a bit of a conversational roundtable kind of chat, talking about some of the stuff that goalie coaches are kind of looking for and some of, the scouts and coaches and stuff. And then we're also going to talk about some of the, common mistakes that we see from goalies, just from our experience working with a lot of goalies. So we've got Connor with us. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so kind of to start off here, we're just going to kind of touch on a few points. We'll kind of go back and forth a little bit, but I kind of wanted to open things off just talking about one of the biggest things that, coaches, scouts, goalie coaches, that they're going to look for is your guys' ability to control your rebounds. That's probably one of the biggest things once you get to a higher level as to what coaches are going to be looking for. Because, in all honesty, as much as we all love, getting 45 shots and, hopefully stopping most of them, in reality, it makes your game a lot easier if you're only stopping 25 because you're able to swallow rebounds. You can control the pace of the play. It's a lot easier, having fresh legs on the ice, getting a defensive zone face off instead of getting caught in a cycle and you get some tired players out there because, we can't trust our defensemen at the best of times, let alone, you know, when they're tired. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Connor, and if you have anything to kind of add and to chime in.
Well, I think like the biggest thing that I look for with that, if we talk about rebound control and specifically, is that I talk about consistency when it comes to that. Like am I when I'm shooting at your blocker or your stick or your pad, are you able to place that puck almost 8 times out of 10 in that same spot? Like if you make the save off the stick, are you able to put it into the corner 8 times out of 10? Put it in off your blocker, put it up the half wall, up the hash mark, so the offensive player can take it out of their zone 9 times out of 10. So I think realistically with that, that's really one of the other key things when it comes to what I would look for is that when it comes to rebound control, it's just that consistency. Like, are we able to make that same save out of 10 shots 8, 9 times?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of that comes from, being able to understand how we want to make our saves. So we've talked lots about using the body, kind of in our efficiency episode the other week. Um, and that's a big one. If you guys can start using that chest area to kind of suck in those rebounds, control those rebounds. And then the big thing is staying over top of the puck too. If you can track down to your saves, especially for stick saves, it makes a huge difference. And just keeping everything in front of your body, the hands, the shoulders, that's all going to help with that rebound control. And that's honestly, if you're basically at the same skill level as another goalie that you're playing, even maybe a little bit below, but you have way better rebound control, that's going to be what sets you guys apart. So that's something to really be working on. Just practice, like Connor said, getting pucks into a certain area and be consistent with it, right? Because if you can, put the puck away from pressure, that's huge. So what do you got for us, Connor, to kick things off?
Well, I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was just, and then you got it in your point here, is just we talk about movement in your edge work. I think that's
Yeah.
such a big part when it comes to playing goal. We want to move in the most efficient way. We want to move in the most consistent, just consistent way uh, possible. A lot of times we see nowadays, which I don't mind to a certain extent. Like the small adjustments, the small shuffles, kind of top to your crease, and those are fine when you have kind of a quick play going across. But when that defenseman's taking his time walking the line to the blue line, we want to make sure that we're moving and setting our feet each time. That particularly when we're going from T push to butterfly or anything that we're tracking around that elbow, not looking over our shoulder, because like Nathan had said in the last point, we're keeping our weight forward, everything's staying in front of us, and we get a proper rotation in our shoulders and our hips. Um, and then that's what just gets us in the next movement. Same thing when we're making our save. Talk about rebound control, track down over the puck, which I think is one of your other talking points. Track down, everything stays in front. We get that rotation in our shoulders and in our hips, looking around that elbow, and that automatically sets us up to our next angle.
Yeah, that rotation is massive, guys. Like, and we'll probably touch on it a little bit in the common mistakes because I see a lot of goalies push flat
Yeah.
instead of getting that good rotation to get squared where you guys want to go. And then with that edge work too, like I know by the time this airs, the conference finals will probably be done, but at the time of our recording, we're still
Hopefully with the Oilers in the final.
yeah, yeah. So the the remaining goalies that are left, especially the ones that are really killing it, like you look at Igor, you look at Bob, um, their edge work is ridiculous, especially Bobrovsky, like just how wide he can get and still move. I don't know what they're doing to their ankles in Russia, but my God, like if you guys can control those edges the way that some of those goalies do, it just makes a massive difference. Like being able to basically move on a dime, just working those edges, being able to get those rotations in, it's massive, and it's something that a lot of goalie coaches look for is how comfortable you look moving in the crease, how good you can control your edges, and as Connor said, how well you can rotate and stay down over top of that puck instead of pulling back.
I think a lot of that when it comes to like Bob and Igor and their edges is just, they're not they're not making things complicated on
Yeah.
themselves. Is that they're just like everything stays in tight, and like they move with such, for lack of a better term, precision. But that's the only way I can put it, is that they, again, like talking about tracking and their hip rotations, just everything stays so together, and they're trying to and they're taking the most effective route possible. That's why we spend, for our practices, we spend what, 10-15 minutes on skating alone,
Yeah.
and then we get right into it. So it's like they always say, and I never really believed it until I became a coach myself, is that the goaltender has to be like the best skater on the team
Yeah.
because of that exact reason. Because the night, like the players are able to do stops and starts, like puck goes past them, they stop, and then they turn and go the other way, or they're able to curl. We don't really get that ability. We really have to stop and start, move on a dime, and really get those edges.
What, you're not good at crossing over with your pads on?
Hey, well, no, I am not. And it's really, definitely not in just player gear alone. I mean, the amount of times that I've toe picked in goalie skates, it's not a good time.
Yeah, I think Connor's hit me in the knee more than he's hit the net in practices.
That's one time. One time. One time.
Yeah,
I think I scored more goals than you in practice too. So.
that's okay. I'm here to make the kids feel good, not to make myself feel good. So,
All right, I walked into that one.
yeah.
I walked into that one.
All right. So we've talked about it a few times already, but tracking. Tracking is basically the root of everything a goalie does.
And I think by
If
extension, head trajectory as well.
yeah. So all of that together, basically, like if your eyes and your head aren't going, you're gonna have a real tough time. And the wonderful thing about the head trajectory and the tracking is you can work on it when you're off the ice because ice time's a premium,
Mm-hmm.
and especially goalie development ice time, that's an even more of a premium. So take the time when you're off the ice to work on your tracking, to work on your head trajectory, and to work on that cognitive training that we've kind of talked lots about. Um, the thing is when it comes to save execution, it's really tough to try and make a save when you're not watching the puck.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of touches on mistakes as well, common mistakes, is there's two things I see goalies do. They either don't track at all and they're still looking at the player when the shot comes and after the shot comes, or they track past their save. So they're looking at the corner for their rebound before the pucks even hit them to make their save. And you see this a lot with taking a puck on the inside of the blocker because the goalie's already looking to the corner, so they've overextended their blocker. Or when you see, a goalie extend too far with their stick and miss and it hits their pad. Those are two indications to me that a goalie is tracking past their puck. But the big thing is just right from the blade of the stick, right to contact with your body, your eye is on the puck, right? So again, we're not looking at our blocker before the puck's there. We're not looking at the player. We're glued to that puck the whole time with those eyes. And again, like Connor said, that head trajectory, that head's coming down into that save too, right? So it's not just the eyes, but basically, if you think about your eyes being glued to the center of your head, just always looking forward, and your head is what's going to move to find where that puck is. That's kind of what we're aiming for. It also is real big on lateral plays. So being able to find the blade, find the threat, because we want to try and beat the pass across. So we're looking for the threat and we're going to push to that threat. So you find the blade of the, receiving player's stick and then you square up to that before making your push. So that all comes from proper tracking, proper head trajectory, and that's probably one of the biggest things you'll see every coach across the board talk about that knows anything about goaltending.
I take it a step further, and I talk about making a proactive save versus a reactive save, which is kind of similar to what you were talking about. Is, your proactive save is that you're proactively tracking down tracking down that puck, bringing it basically nose and chin to glove, make your save, and then you're watching it out. Versus being reactive, we're literally not even moving until the last minute, right? Which at that point, head comes back, weight distribution comes back, and then our hands, and then we make our save behind us or beside our body. That's what I call a reactive save in that moment. So we always want to try to be, again, like Nathan had just talked about, making a proactive save if you want to if you want to put a different definition on it, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's the nose or the chin to chest or to glove or whatever it is you're making that save. That's a good analogy too. Just making sure that, like, if somebody were to take a picture at the end of your save, that
Mm.
your whole head is looking exactly at the contact point of your body, and that's kind of the goal, right? um, it just not only does it allow us to make saves a lot easier, but it's also going to allow you to find rebounds quicker. It's going to make you more efficient in your recoveries because you know exactly where that puck is. Gives you a better chance when it comes to deflections, screens, all of that stuff. So again, I can't implore enough on you guys, when you're off the ice, work on your tracking. Something as simple as, bouncing one ball off the wall and watching it into your hand and then bouncing it off to the other side. And you can take that a few steps further and add, a couple more balls in like a juggling type aspect, or get somebody to throw the ball from behind you against the wall. So you have to pick it up quick. There's plenty of other things. We can link it up in the show notes too. There's, synaptic glasses that really work on tracking. There's like the Visual Edge platform that does a lot of stuff for cognitive and vision training. There's a few other things too. Even like something as simple, we've talked lots about concentration grids. That gets the eyes going, that gets the brain going. So there's lots of stuff you guys can do, but whatever it is, work on that tracking.
There's there's like a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of different stuff when it comes to that. You got like blocker sleeve, NHL Sense Arena, um, just even like reaction balls, everything like that. So like, there's a whole bunch
Yeah.
of different stuff that's out there. I mean, like even I know, like I don't think we have it in here, and I don't think it's relevant. But I think it's relevant to this conversation. Is just being a multi-sport athlete as well.
Yeah,
That's the other big thing as well. Like baseball is like tremendous for that. When it comes to tracking alone, just baseball, you got to catch
yeah,
that ball in the glove. You got to watch that ball, make contact with the bat, and then try to watch that ball go in your glove when it's 6,000 feet in the air, and you're trying to battle the sun, which has happened more times than I like to admit. But you know,
yeah. You've dropped a few in your career.
yeah, lost it in the sun, and
Yeah,
you
is
get
that your
benched the next
excuse for
place.
goaltending too?
No, it's just, I can't even say poor coaches because I had Schwartzy as my coach. So
Yeah, there you go.
it's just lack of lack of
Lack of
giving that.
tracking, right?
Sure, yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah. See, it's important, guys.
Definitely wasn't
All
trying
right.
to play like the old Dwayne Rollison style of goaltending. So.
Yeah. There you go. All right. What else you got for us?
I want to talk about what do we got here. So we talked about, let's talk about coachability because I think that's a big one. I think there's a little bit of um, kind of a little bit of pushback with coaches nowadays when it comes to that pushback with coaches and parents. Um, we're not saying I wouldn't say by any means that that your goalie has to be like a model student, you know. Um, but I think definitely um, a lot of kids expect things to be handed to them nowadays. I find, and so need to get back in the mindset now of like you actually have to work for whatever it is that you want to achieve, and coachability is like a huge thing with that. We're not like I'm not like um, the definition of the term, like only a goalie understands what a goalie goes through. I think is crucial with that, just because like we need like us as goalie coaches, like we played the position. We're trying to pass down our knowledge and our expertise to the next generation, and so we need it helps. It definitely is beneficial to us, but it's also beneficial to your kid as well if they're proactively listening to what we're saying and they're actually trying to make adjustments into their game. Um, I think both of us we've had kids that are just out there for the sake of being out there because mom and dad have put them out there and everything, right? So it's we just need kids to be receptive and want to be able to want them to be out there because they want to be out there. And there's such a pushback with that as well because I read a post a while ago that had said, and I think it's a terrible take, that it's coach like when you say a student the post that said like when you say a student is uncoachable, it means that you're failing at your job as being a coach. And I think that was such a bad take because I think it I think it goes to a two-way street overall.
Yeah.
We're out there donating our time because we love the position, but why? But and you need to be out there for your own benefit and your own development.
Yeah. And that's if I'm doing evaluations and I have a goalie that's maybe not quite there in skill compared to another goalie, but they seem eager and willing, and you can tell there's improvement in the
Mm-hmm.
session that you do. That goalie is probably more likely to be my choice as opposed to the goalie that, provides a bit of attitude, says that, oh, I know that or whatever. Like it
Mm-hmm.
drives me nuts as a coach when you say something like, hey, you need to track the puck and whatever, you need to make your save out or out in front of your body. And then they're like, oh, I know. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, then why aren't you
If you
doing it?
know, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like,
And
it's like be be receptive. I mean, I know there are coaches out there that maybe aren't the best coaches, or maybe that they're giving conflicting information as
mm,
opposed to another coach you're working with. I get that. But each coach will have something that you can take away from. And even if you're just like, okay, I'll try it and it didn't work for you, it is what it is, right? But, do it respectfully too, especially in the case of like an evaluation. If there's something you don't agree with, just be respectful about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just to build off that too, that goes for parents as well.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you, I did an evaluation this past season at the start of the year. And I had told them, I was like, okay, I think these are your two best goalies. And this goalie is probably number three. And then it kind of tapers off from there.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I had listed as number one when it came to skill, because I was just based off of skill from the session that I was doing, they told me, yeah, we're not taking that guy because his mom basically makes our life a living nightmare. So it it it's affecting how your kid might be picked. So just be aware of that as parents, yes, you obviously want the best for your kids and to stand up for them and stuff like that, but some of the times what you do can affect whether or not they make a team. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, we could have 1,000 different ways, like a 1,000 hours of conversation about that, and like even at the junior level, I have found as well that at that point in time, we're there, just to build on the skills that you have, and just to refine the game at that point. And I think having a healthy dialogue between a goalie and a coach is great, but at the same time is just when it starts to come to a point where you're countermanding, or you're counter arguing everything that we say, then it doesn't become productive at that point. And I had that recently on the junior side of things, and even when it comes to the parents as well. And I think this is like a millennia conversation where your job as a parent is to cheer on your kid. That's in my mind. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. Um, Again, same thing. Always open to a healthy dialogue. You know, be receptive, everything along those lines. But the last thing you want is for your kid not to play M Black Double A because mom and dad are
Getting too involved.
exactly, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So just that's the role of the parent. I think is just
Yeah.
be the cheerleader, be them on the sidelines. Like my fiance had asked me that. It's like, oh, if we put our kids in hockey, are you coaching them? I said nope, no thank you, because I know I would be a terrible coach with my own kid. So no, I would rather at that point just enjoy the game, watch them. If I can be involved with the team in a different way, fine. But I am not being their goalie coach
Yeah.
because I couldn't do it.
I'll take your kids to hockey. You can take mine.
Sure,
So
sounds good.
our 4-year-old's actually doing pretty good with baseball. So I hope
Okay.
both of our kids just go into a sport that I'm so naive and clueless on that I can just be like, yay.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Or just like go into hockey, but like don't be a goalie. I think
yeah,
that's
well,
yeah.
isn't that every parent's dream though?
Could ask my parents.
Yeah.
My
Yeah, I know
my
mine are glad that my brother wasn't a goalie, but
well, my
um,
my my father, myself, and my younger brother. All
yeah,
three of us. All three of us goalies. So
yeah, that's rough.
R.I.P. bank
I,
account.
yeah. All right, so we'll touch on our next one, and I know you kind of brought it up talking to one of the other coaches you knew too, who he kind of talked about, more of the hockey IQ. Like I like to refer to
Mhm.
it as situational awareness, but coaches look for, especially once you get down to like exhibition games or kind of the inter squad scrimmages. And once you really start to narrow down the playing field, this is one that can really set you apart. Like if you are aware of threats in the zone, if you are kind of anticipating plays, not cheating, but anticipating plays, and just kind of like, you know, being aware of your surroundings, like when to play the puck, when to stop the puck, like behind the net, when to cover it, or when to, you know, leave the play going. Right, just kind of that IQ, that being able to read the situation, what's kind of going on around you. That can be something, and especially like head coaches, they love stuff like that because the technical part of goaltending they have no idea. But when they see a goalie that, oh, that guy came out and made a good play up to our defenseman and we broke out, or oh wow, we gave up a 3-on-2 but our goalie read that perfectly, took a shot right in the chest, got a whistle, and we got fresh light, like stuff like that, right? Because they, without knowing the nitty gritty of the position, they base stuff more on the eye test. And when you have good situational awareness, the eye test looks fantastic. So if you guys have time to watch video of yourself, watch video of other goalies, even watch video of like the other teams that you're playing if you can, just getting an idea of what's going on, how certain plays develop, how other goalies are playing certain situations, all of that stuff, like it can make a big difference.
I have found nowadays, particularly in watching the Oilers, that I'm able to pick up on, particularly when it comes to their power play. Like I'm able to see like where exactly they're going next, and it's not. I mean, looking at it from a broadcast perspective, it's not that hard to anticipate or to know where the Oilers are. To know what the Oilers are doing nowadays, they're trying to get the dry
What you,
side Oilers.
I was gonna say, you mean it's hard to pick up that they're going down low to dry side for the one
No,
time?
well, no, it's not that hard to pick up where nowadays. But it's the same. It's the same thing down in the goalie's end. You know, are we able to pick up on a 2-on-1? Okay, are we able to? Okay, we know we have that guy coming in as a trailer. So we have to anticipate that pass, particularly when there's even scrums in our own zone. Players are caught backs are facing towards us. We're able to take a quick moment and scan, okay, who are threats, who's out in front, where are my guys, um, that type of deal.
Yeah,
Um,
and the left-handed, right-handed too, especially
exactly, yeah,
on the backdoor threat.
yeah, even then, or even just as that shot's coming, even in that 2-on-1 situation, like I just presented, which way are they shooting? Is it a right-handed shot coming down or is it a left-handed shot coming down? Because that to me, I think plays an important role. Because if it's a left-handed shot and they're coming down along the wall, that shot's going to be closer towards the boards, right? If that left-handed puck carrier is coming in, and then again, same thing on the trailer that's coming in, is the left-handed shooter is a right-handed shooter. Because I think where their stick blade is in relation to the ice, so to speak, I think that plays also an important role. Because like that left-handed shooter, they have what, this much to shoot with between where the defenseman is and where the goalpost is, I
Yeah.
would say. And then even that right hand shooter in the trailers in the trailer spot. Um, and then yeah, that's a big thing there. I mean, I'm in goal magazine pro reads.
Yeah.
I've been really having a lot of fun with reading those and just kind of seeing what guys like Dustin Wolf, Devin Levi see.
Yeah. And that's honestly like from an X's and O's standpoint, situational awareness is not something you can really teach per se.
Mhm.
I mean, you can break
It's an
down
acquired
certain
taste.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can break down certain situations and just say, this is what we'd like to do. But we all know the game happens so quick. There's so many variables. Like, you can't plan for absolutely everything. However, the more you expose yourself to these things, the more you'll have a kind of natural sense of what to do and the more comfortable you're in. And that comes from, you know, just studying the game, basically, is what it comes down to. Like watching video, like Connor said, seeing what other goalies are talking about, especially the pros and other goalie coaches,
Hmm.
even having a dialogue with your other goalie buddies, even your non goalie buddies, asking what they see, right? Like, that's another thing. If you can understand the other side of things, and that was kind of why, like, one of our first episodes, we had Tim Turk on, who's, the NHL shooting coach. And just getting a perspective as to what they're looking for on the other side, right? Like, there's nothing better than, when one of your teammates says, "Oh, I go low blocker on you every time in the shootout and it works every time." Well, the next time you know
Hmm.
exactly where they're going, and they probably burn you and go high glove or something. But even still,
Going
right?
back, yeah, going back to like the video side of things again. This one, the other podcast that I was listening to. It's nowadays not a lot of kids are watching hockey,
Yeah,
so to speak, and so like
it's
oh
the
they'll
TikTok highlights.
yeah the TikTok
Yeah,
highlights or the Sportsnet game recap at the end of it. It's like no, actually go back and like what it's game five Edmonton Oilers Dallas Stars tonight as of recording this. Like sit down and actually watch it. Even with the high the not the TikTok highlights because I can't stand those. The Sportsnet highlights. I know poor Stu Skinner is just getting absolutely grilled by Oilers fans right now just because of the types of goals that he's letting in. But I'm actually I've taken it a step further nowadays, and like I've actually like on YouTube, you slow it down to zero point 0.5 speed or whatever, and you watch it frame by frame how it's broken down, and you see the build up towards the goal that Stu Skinner or Jake Ottinger give up, or even just the save as well. Like you do the same thing. Like what's on the TV, PVR it or however TVs work nowadays. I don't have cable, so it just what would normally be a 3 hour game to most hockey fans would probably be a 6 hour game just because like, go back and not necessarily watch and read every play, but just you see a nice save that we think is nice. It's not like the highway robbery split save, glove save, Jake Odger, Chris Tanev stick save because McDavid can't get the puck off the ice. Um, but just so oh hey, Jake Ottinger made a made a nice pad save and went to the corner, nice rebound control. Okay, let's go back and watch that, see if we can break it down. I think that's important for particularly younger goalies as well, or goalies of all ages. Really, just like hey, just watch an actual hockey game. Watch what Stu Skinner and Jake Ottinger, Igor Shesterk, and Sergei Bobrovsky see what they're doing,
yeah,
or
and
whoever it is that you like to watch.
yeah, and a good exercise for that is to kind of put yourself in kind of, quote unquote their coach's shoes. Like
Mm-hmm.
just do a breakdown of a save or a goal, and like talk out loud like you were talking to them if they were beside you and you were breaking down the goal and saying, "Hey, we did this well. Hey, we can improve on this." Because that's gonna help you guys too a lot with being more comfortable in breaking these situations down and starting to see common patterns, right? Like we're gonna after this start going on the common mistakes we see,
Mm-hmm.
but you're gonna start seeing some of these things too, right? Like, I mean, how many times has it been brought up, the misuse of the RVH, right? And that's something we're going to talk on too. But
Mm-hmm.
if you guys can start to identify, okay, this situation, he got scored on above his shoulder because he was in the RVH. Okay, now I know in that situation I shouldn't be in the RVH or whatever the case is, right? And then take that a step further and start videoing yourself and do the same thing because um, we had a speaker at our camp last year, John Stevenson, who said to our goalies, the best goalie coach in the world is you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you know yourself best. You know what works and what doesn't. And us as outside goalie coaches, we can give you all the tools and we can tell you what we see. But at the end of the day, the more control you can take of your own game, the better that you're going to be and the better it's going to be for you, right? So just again, that builds that situational awareness, being able to break down and understand the game, whether it's the pros or other goalies in your league or yourself, especially yourself. That's going to really help to build that. Um, so why don't we get started on the mistakes? Why don't you start us off with some of the mistakes?
Yeah, so I think one of my biggest pet peeves is the overuse of sliding in our movements. Um, and I'm not sure where it came from. I'm not sure who started the trend,
Well,
but
it's the
I
easy
would,
way.
yeah,
It's the
that's
lazy way
yeah,
out.
yeah, I guess. And I would really like it to stop
Yeah.
because, like, even just like at the most recent skate that I was at, not yesterday, the day before, just there were so many movements. I was watching these goalies just they'd be at the top corner of their crease and they had to move to the other side, and it's a simple 1-2 shuffle or it's a simple T push across, and they're already sliding into that movement, and he kept getting beat each time, and I kept having to tell him, stay on your dang feet. Like
Yeah.
it's one of the biggest pet peeves of mine, and I think it's much like the RVH gets overused a lot. I mean, it may seem like it's the most quick. May seem like it's the quicker way of of moving across our crease, but it really isn't. Just because there's more, for lack of a better term, there's more gears that have to be turned in order to get to that next movement. Like, we have to actually turn again. Same thing. Turn, rotate, drop that hip, load that leg, push across, and then we have to pop back up to that next position. Meanwhile, that shot's happening at top of the circles in the dot, and like it's a substantial amount away that it's like by the time you get up, or even by the time you get to that next position, you're already beat. And
Yeah.
so it drives me nuts nowadays that I see that. So I think just again, same thing, just going back to movement and situational awareness and tracking every all the other points that we have before, just how you move in your crease and staying on your feet, trying to hold your edges for the longest point in time is really gonna would really help you in the long run. But that's just one of those things that now I see nowadays. It's just the amount of the overuse of sliding, even just
Yeah.
into our saves. That's the other thing as well. Like, it's not just moving across the crease. It's we're set in a position, the shot comes, and we're sliding the opposite direction, or we're sliding into our save, but we're over sliding and we still miss it, and it beats us, or we create a bad rebound in front. Not not everything needs to be Sports Center top 10 highlight reel save or everything. It's just try to keep things simple in your save execution, in your movement for as much as you can. Hold your edges, stay on your feet a little bit longer than normal. Sliding really only needs to happen when it's a short movement across, I find, or we're in a real desperation type situation, post to post, however you want to do it. Just, I think, staying on our feet, not necessarily going back to the old Bob Essence style of play, Grant Fuhr style of play, but I think just
Yeah.
holding your edges cross ice in your save execution just a little bit, just I think just a little bit longer would really be beneficial.
Yeah. I think basically, if the puck's in tight, like if it's passed in tight, like a backdoor or a shot pass, anything like that, yes, for sure, we want to slide. Outside of that,
Mhm.
um, you guys really watch Bobrovsky. Like he's probably, I think, one of the best goalies at getting across on his feet consistently that I've seen.
Mhm.
Um, like there's even been a couple goals this playoffs that he comes across on his feet and still somehow gets beat, and he kind of looks like, how did that beat me? But I mean, he was there. It was just a nice shot. But
Mhm.
um, the big one though, to build off that, is the sliding into saves, because there's two things that I see happen lots with this. And the first one is you slide to your blocker side to make a save. You kick out a rebound to the glove side, and good luck getting back in time if,
Mhm.
it lands on an opposing player's stick. The second one is on deflections. So, shot from the point, goalie slides to the blocker save to make their save, and it gets tipped back the other way to the glove side. And now there's a lot more open net there than there was on the initial shot. And if you guys are in proper position, you can cover your posts without any lateral movement just by shifting your body and being out in front of your body to make your save. I think a lot of goalies panic. I think they feel like they need to move more than they need to. And that's for both movements and for saves. So if you guys haven't already, do the box control exercise where you get the dog leashes on the top corner of the net or the ropes or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and just see when you're at the top of your crease how far away you are from your posts based on what the puck sees. And you'll be surprised at how little you actually have to move.
There's a
That
good.
also,
Sorry. Go ahead.
oh, you go ahead if you want to
No,
build on
just
that.
yeah. No, just there's a good video on YouTube from Syracuse, from the Syracuse Crunch goaltending coach from a few years ago. I think it was
Yeah,
Wister.
there's one I think that Pure Hockey did with somebody. I can't remember who though. But we can throw that in the show notes too to kind
Yeah,
of, so you guys can go take a look. But it really shows just how little you have to move and how much actually being in front of your body covers that net. Um, and then when it comes to the lateral movements, like a D to D pass, you guys don't need to be sliding.
no.
Get over on your feet, get set quick, and you'll be in position a lot quicker.
Again, going
Again,
back to that. Sorry, Nathan. Just going back to
yeah,
that. Proactive versus reactive situational awareness, or the save execution that we had talked about, right? Like, I think sliding into your movements or sliding across ice is being reactive because we're not being proactive in our tracking. Like again, it all boils down to tracking at the end of the day.
yeah,
I mean, and it's not just tracking the puck, but we're watching or tracking the play that's going on around us, right? So we want to
yeah,
be, again, same thing. We want to be in a proactive movement, not a reactive movement, because then that's when
yeah.
mistakes start to happen.
And if you think about it too, sliding across, again, if it's not an in tight play or anything like that, if you're sliding every time, say it's a power play and they're going around the outside, and if you slid every time to your feet, think of it as adding an extra half second to your
Mm-hmm.
to your game, right? So now by the time they've made four passes, you're like 2 seconds behind, just because it takes extra time to slide down and pop back up and then be set in a proper position than it does to just make that initial T push over or shuffle over, whatever it is you're going to do to get set on our feet. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, sliding's one that is definitely overused. And let's transition into something else that's very overused and common mistakes: post play, RVH.
Yeah.
Okay. So um, a lot of times this stems from the fact that we do not do enough practice on our posts. Given how much we play in and out of our posts, we do not practice it enough. So my general rule of thumb, and again, there's gray areas here, but this probably covers 90 to 95% of the plays. If the puck is above the goal line, we're just in our overlap position. So we're basically just a half step off the post, square to the puck. We're set. We're ready to go. And now it's just a straight shot. Okay. And that's anything above the goal line. Anything below the goal line towards the corner, again, some gray area depending on your age and your skill level. I usually like to say we're on our feet against our post flat on our goal line because that gives you the optionality for movement. And then anything kind of in the NHL trapezoid area ish is the RVH area, and a little bit above the goal line in tight as well. But we want to get away from, the hash marks or the top of the circle, and we're transitioning into the RVH because especially now, players know that that's open. They are actively looking for that. And that's why these goals are going in so much more frequently, because the players are aware that it's there now. They've done their homework. They're looking for that spot because it's been there for a few years now. So we want to try and make sure that we're comfortable getting into and getting out of our posts, right? And that we know when to do what. And just a bit of a build off of that too is how we get into that post. So ideally with the RVH, we want to get our toe to that post, the toe of our skate to that post, so that our toe bridge kind of overlaps over the post a little bit, and that gives a nice good seal. Because we saw in game 3 of the Oilers and Stars, the game-winning goal, Stu was against his post in the RVH, but he was skate blade first. And what that allowed was there was a little bit of a gap that when Robertson kind of went behind the net and stuffed it in, there was a gap that the puck was able to go through between the boot and the post because his skate blade was there. So there's 3 ways we can seal the post. There's our toe, there's the toe bridge or the shin of the pad, and there's the skate blade. And out of all 3 of those, the skate blade is definitely the least desirable. And I think next week we'll probably actually do a whole episode on post play, and we'll go into this a lot more in depth. But try and avoid that skate to that post, and just, again, practice getting into and out of our posts, getting into and out of the RVH, and just, again, that situational awareness, understand when to use what, because everyone harps on the RVH. It's a great tool. It's an awesome way to seal the post. The problem is it's just way too overused.
Yeah, and like you had said, that just boils down to pucks below the goal line got to drop down to that RVH, even though it's in the far corner in our zone. It's just you're not reading the play effectively if that's your first go to in that type of situation. The RVH is nice for everything in tight because it gets a good seal, but you cover more than that. Again, talking about holding your edge, just staying on your feet, you cover more in that way, particularly when that puck's that far out. We talk about box control, and again, you go back and look at the Syracuse Crunch Hockey David Alexander video there on it, and it's a good video that touches on that. If you know your size in the net and you know how to use it effectively, it doesn't matter if you're 6 years old and 4'11", or whether you're 25 years old and 6'1".
That's a big 6-year-old.
Really? 4'11's big? For really?
That's almost 5 feet for a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, okay, fine. My 4-year-old's like 3.5 feet.
Dude. There are some monster kids out there. I would not be surprised if there was a 4'11" 6-year-old. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2, but anyways.
Well, and that kid's playing goal. Um,
Yeah, it's in
oh,
the
you
show.
jerk! You. Oh, jeez. But yeah, that does if you know your size in the net and you know how to use it effectively, you'll know when to use certain movements and when not to. And definitely the
Yeah.
RVH, yeah, definitely gets overused a lot in that aspect. Used the guys like Stuart Skinner. Um, I think even Shesterkin was overusing it for a little bit. Who's that other goalie in the NHL series that got scored on the RVH in the corner?
It was who did Vancouver play Nashville? Saros.
Saros. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Sar.
Zadorov had two like that, right? Against
Yeah.
Stu and against Saros.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there you go, right there. Big size difference there. Because what Stu Skinner's like what 4'6'4", something like that.
I think he's
I know.
6'2" or 6'3". Saros is
Yeah, and then
5'11",
yeah,
but
it's
yeah.
5'11". Yeah. So there you go, right there.
So if you guys are gonna use the RVH though, pop yourself up. I did see Shesterkin make a save where he was in it too early, but he actually like launched himself upwards to make a
Hmm.
shoulder save on that top corner. So I mean, it is doable. Just understand that, especially if you're younger and smaller, you can't get away with it as much as the guys in the show who are 6'4".
Yeah.
And again, it's just that use thing. And I think we'll do a full post play episode because I think it'll be a good one.
Okay.
So we'll maybe save that for next week. So what do you got for us next?
I want to talk about dropping gloves because that is another one that grinds my gears a little bit, so to speak. Peter Griffin, you know what really grinds my gears? Um,
Yeah,
and again, that stems back to not properly tracking the puck and not being ready to make a proactive save. When we drop,
yeah. What's that block mentality, right?
yeah, exactly. It's the particularly I'm only talking about this from like a shot in like the slot area. Um, want to be set properly, want to be making a proactive save, tracking down the object, tracking down the puck, keeping our hands out in front of us, cutting off the angle. Too many times I see uh, kids are in a good position, and but then once that shot comes, they freeze up, shoulders come back towards their ears, and their hands stay back at their waist. And then now they're taking that extra second because everything came up, and now they have to go down into making that save, which ends up causing them to make their saves behind them or beside them, which causes our weight distribution to come back, which causes our head to come back, and now we're tracking over our shoulder, and now we open up more holes than we need to. So that is what we call a bad habit, and something that needs to be corrected. And I don't focus on it a whole lot at the novice Atom level, maybe more in the Atom level, whatever it is now, the U7, U8, U whatever, um,
U9 and U7.
whatever. It's novice. You know, I don't focus on it on that level as much, but definitely in the later stages of Atom heading into Pee Wee Bantam Midget, juniors. Uh, those are more so what I look for when it comes to that is hands stay out in front. Are we tracking in front of us? And when we get into a good position, we're not bringing everything backwards and our weight isn't coming back where our butt's basically touching our heels, particularly if we're dropping down to butterfly in that instance. So
Yeah,
that's there's just a bad habit that we need to correct earlier rather than later. And it's yeah, just one of those things that really has been grinding my gears.
yeah. Well, that's so. We had the efficiency episode a couple weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we touched on the point of any movement we do either needs to help us make a save or help us get into position to make a save. And we
Mm-hmm.
did touch very briefly on dropping the gloves back, but what that does is that creates a delay because a lot of goalies, what they'll do, they'll bring the hands in initially to then try and come out, because that's their default, is the gloves coming back to the hips or just dropping in general. And you got to think about, now we're not getting that straight line. We're coming down to try and come back up or out. And what that does is that now adds time. And as a goalie, we can't afford to add time. Those delays are what really kill us, right? That's kind of the difference between the elite goalies and the not so elite goalies, is just being able to be that much more efficient. So we'll maybe do one more each, finish off here, because the one I really wanted to
Sure.
talk about was the not set early enough, because I see this
Okay.
a lot, because we do video breakdowns as services for our goalies, and I see a lot of game footage where the puck's in the zone and working its way around, and there's actually maybe a pass to a guy at the top of the circle who's, tickling the rafters ready for a shot, and the goalie's standing straight up. And we've seen it a couple times in the playoffs too, because we all know we cannot trust our defensemen. We cannot trust our other teammates a lot of the times, right?
Yeah.
So, how many times have we seen a guy throw a pizza right up the middle, right on the other guy's tape, and all of a sudden it's in the net? Now, not that we're blaming the goalies on that, but again, from a goalie perspective, we need to control what we can control, and we can't control how bad our defensemen are at getting the puck out of our zone. So, what we need to do is we need to be set early, and we need to be in a good set position, right? So, a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, it's not terrible, but a little bit of a pet peeve of mine is how much the raised stance gets used these days. Um, just mostly because it gets used in situations that maybe shouldn't be used. Again, kind of like the RVH and the sliding that we talked about. But when a guy is in the slot, or it's a 2-on-1 or whatever, we should not be in our raised stance. If it's a power play and they're working it around the outside, passing it around, sure, great. Be in the raised stance. Make sure your knees are bent and your hands are still forward. That's the big thing. But we need to make sure that, we're not just standing straight up all the time, because then we're not ready for shots. We're not ready for passes. And that's when we get eaten alive. My rule of thumb is, as soon as the puck passes the red line, you are set in a position ready to make a save or ready to make a play.
Yeah, I think just again, I'm just attributing this back to just want to make sure that we're in a proactive position rather than a reactive position. I think that's the only way I can really describe that.
Yeah, we
You
don't want
know,
to take time. We don't want to take time from our save execution to be getting set, right?
mhm.
Like, if that shot comes, we don't want time spent on getting low and getting set, because we should already be there. We want that full amount of time, because it's not much. It's like a split second. We want that full amount of time to be dedicated to actually making a save.
Right. Yeah,
So,
it just like again, it just boils down to tracking the puck, um, being ready and anticipating for any curveballs that get thrown our way. Um, and just making sure that we're using the most effective movements or the most effective reads in order to get into that position in order to make our save.
yeah. All right. Let's bring us home, Connor. What do you got to end us
Last
off?
one, I want to talk about depth because I think that's an important one there. The amount of times where goalies will be drifting back into their crease too early creates problems. Um, Depth really attributes to how much net we're taking up, and also helps to contribute in our save execution. And again, we talked about the giant 4'11" 6-year-old um, versus the casual 6'1" 25-year-old. They're going to require like on a shot in the slot or a shot at top of the circles or even down and tight. They're going to require different positionings in their crease. The 6'1" can probably take up or give up a little bit more ice compared to the. I'm going to knock the 6-year-old down a few pegs to the 4'3". Um, just depth is a really really crucial part in our game, and we don't want to be giving up so much ice to the point where we're sitting on our goal line where that shot's in the slot in between the hash marks. So really just talking about in a breakaway aspect, really want to make sure that we're matching the speed of the shooter. We're maintaining good space in between us and the shooter so that we're still taking up a good portion of the net in order to make our save. Too many times where particularly and this is in younger goalies in particular, where the goalie will drift too far back, because they're not because they're not so focused on where they are positionally in the net. They're just focusing on staying square to the shooter, or just watching where the shooter is going, that they're not really paying attention to where they are in their crease, because they could be in the middle of the blue paint where that shot's come from top of the circles area. And so now where they've exposed holes in just kind of the outer parts of their body, just kind of outside of their reach on their glove or their blocker side. So just it really, really important that we're paying attention to where we are in our crease in each movement that we make. A lot of times as well, you'll see like if I'm doing a drill where I have pucks in top of the circle and I'm curling down along the wall, or I'm curling towards center of the ice, and then I stop and the goalie's like this is me, and then this is the goalie. He's like this far off this way. I take the stick and I point it at and say, well, this is the directional line of shooting where I'm at. You need to be in that lane, and then you also need to watch where you are in your crease. Are you at the top of your crease? Are you about mid-level of your crease? Or are you standing on your goal line? Where are you in the net?
Yeah, that positional aspect of the game too is huge. When it comes to depth, what I like to tell my goalies is, you've earned that ice. Don't give it up. Like, obviously, to a certain extent, like you said, in a breakaway, we want to come out further and then give some of that ice back so we can get some momentum back.
Mm-hmm.
But there comes a certain point, whether it's in zone, whether it's a breakaway, anything like that, there comes a certain point where we do have to hold that ice so that we do get some of that net coverage. And so usually it depends on your age and your size, but usually kind of top of the crease, maybe a step or two back, depending on what you can get away with and what the situation is. But being able to hold that ice, and that's a comfort thing. Like, a lot of times when a goalie has somebody attacking straight to the net, they get spooked, and that's why they suck back, right? So you have to have that confidence to know you're in position, let the player make the move, and you're just waiting to make that save. The other mistake I see lots with depth is gaining too much depth when there's a lateral play, right? So there is such a thing as too much depth. And one thing I noticed lots, because obviously, we're Oilers fans. We watched quite a few of the Oilers games. And what I noticed early
Are there
on in the season,
other NHL teams who?
yeah, yeah. Well, as long as you're not a Flames fan or a Leafs fan. Oh, we just lost some listeners. um, but yeah, if you watch Skinner earlier in the season when the Oilers were struggling and Skinner was struggling, and he still does it sometimes, but I find it's not as noticeable. But there is a few times where there is a 2-on-1 that the Oilers gave up, and Skinner's sitting there like 2 or 3 steps outside of his crease, and then the pass comes across and he tries to get there, but there is absolutely no chance that he was getting across, and he would get scored on. And I see that lots with a lot of goalies that they don't understand. And that kind of goes back to that situational awareness point of things, but they don't understand when to gain depth and when not to. Because the other thing, too, is on a lateral play, our angle and being square is our two most important things about our position, and then we can gain depth if we have time. But a lot of goalies try to gain that depth with that push, and they don't get there in time. So understand that yes, depth is there to help us get more coverage on the net, but there are instances that we don't want to be gaining depth. So those are kind of the mistakes we see, whether sucking back when the net's being attacked or staying out too far on a lateral play or trying to get out too far when pushing across for a lateral play. So again, if you know, if goaltending was easy, everybody would do it, but you know, there's lots of variables, lots of situations, but trying to understand when to do what can really help curb some of these mistakes.
Yeah, depth is just a huge component to this game, and if you know how to use it effectively, then you will succeed in the crease there. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we touched lots on some of the things that, we look for as goalie coaches and then some of the mistakes we see. What do you think if you could wrap it up into one tip for the goalies out there? What do you think it would be?
I think it's just being receptive. I think that's the one takeaway that I think all goalies can benefit from. Be receptive. More tools in the toolbox, the better. Um, find what works for you and what doesn't. I think that's the biggest takeaway that any goalie from just starting out to playing into their 60s, that's the biggest takeaway from all this, is that there's no one right way to play the position. Take what works for you, uh, integrate it into your game, and then run with it. So I think that's the biggest takeaway of that from all this.
Yeah. And I would add too, I'll throw in a number one tip too, because I don't normally get to do this. um, my number one tip I think I'll give for you guys is take advantage of what you can do off the ice, because there's such a limit as to the ice time that we get and the development we get as goalies, because a lot of times it's non-existent when we're on the ice. That being said, a little caveat to that: take onus on yourself when you do have 2 minutes of free time in a practice to work on some movement or some edge work. But off the ice, focus on working some of that strength, the core, the leg strength. Work on the cognitive training, the vision training, tracking. All of this stuff you guys can do at the video, right? Like off the ice is where you're going to set yourself apart. And that's where things kind of fall short. People go for their practice. Oh, good job. Okay, now let's carry on with their day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in something. Well, you're probably hard pressed to get a full 10,000 hours on the ice just with what you have offered to you from whatever program you're with.
Yeah, that off ice development is so increasingly important nowadays.
Yeah,
So
and underused too. And
yeah, there are plenty of great programs out there that are designed for that. Um, Even just resources as well. DIY Goalie and Goal Magazine. Um, Stop at Goaltending You. There's a
Future
bunch of
Pro.
Future
Yeah,
Pro, goalie
yeah,
coaches. There's a bunch of great off ice programs and readings
yeah.
and videos and everything to benefit from. So, and I that's being able to, cause it's one thing to play the position, but it's a whole nother thing to understand it and to study it, like we talked earlier in this pod here. So I think this, like Nathan had said, just being able to utilize the resources that are out there are increasingly beneficial.
All right. Yeah. So thanks for joining us today. And it was a good chat. Why don't you let people know where they can find you? I know like Connor's a part of our staff at True North Goaltending, which you can look up on Instagram and Facebook. But where can people find you and reach out if they want to?
Yeah, no. If they need to reach out to me, they can find me over on Instagram at MundayGC. It's MUNDAYGC. I am also over on TikTok, not as active over there, but I am there at same username. You can also reach out to me over on Facebook as well. Just send me a friend request at CONNORMUNDAY. It also have my profile picture from the Spruce Grove Eagles. And then yeah, just same thing as well with True North Goaltending, part of their staff. Also part of with SOS, excuse me, SOS Hockey and their staff, Prodigy Hockey and their staff, and then as well as goalie coaches over the summertime. So that's where people can find me at.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And we'll put the show notes up at the DIYgoalie.com/pod009. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday.